Alright, here we are coming up on probably the last two tutorials for this buddy character process. We're going to go ahead and get started on the 225, which I anticipate should be fairly quick and should allow us to possibly finish the top and bottom as well. So before I get started doing the 225 angle, what I would like to do is first just import everything that we've done so far, because I think it's important for you to see the different stages of your development within the application, just to make sure, number one, things are looking the way you initially anticipated it to look, as well as to make sure there are no glitches that's going on with your character. And if it is, hopefully you can still minimize it before it grows out of hand. So I'm going to drag Crazytalk Animator to the screen and quickly bring up the buddy base character. And see how our character looks in the environment. Okay, and so here she is. And I'm just going to see how she rotates. And so far she looks good. I have not done the joint mask and will not do the joint mask until the very end. There's times I may do it partially just to make sure that the character will behave the way I expect it to behave once the real joint mask is applied, but there is no need to continuously do the joint mask or even save the joint mask at this stage. It's best to get everything imported in the way you want and do the joint mask as kind of like your final touches. So one thing I've noticed is close up, there are definitely some gaps that's missing. I mean, that's apparent on this character. I really don't seem to have it in too many places, but I can see a small piece right here with the shoe, and I definitely see a few pieces with the feather. So I'm just going to skim over each angle. And yeah, once again, I see it here with the feather. I've seen some spots where I can and should clean it up some more. And that same glitch with the shoe is going to be on every angle because the shoes are copies. So it's no need of me, checking for the same spots over and over again. And so if you're able to zoom in this close to your character, and for the most part, things look smooth in the way you want it, then you probably have a nice solid built character, because you never know for what type of animation, how close someone will zoom into your character. So I like to zoom in and see any spaces where I think, like for example here, I can clean it up and make it look more appealing. And that's what I like about vector um, vector characters, is that you can really get it that close. And to be honest, you can get it close with a PNG file. I definitely will not say that you cannot, but it all depends on how large you draw and import that character from the very beginning. With vectors, it really doesn't matter. So I'm happy overall with what I've seen, but I see where I need to fix some spots. So before we move forward, and actually I won't close this out. I'm just going to drag this to the other screen for now. And I'm going to go back to my screen. And one of the things that I like to do at some point in time with my character, just to help me discover if there are any white spots, I like to change the stage to a bright color, um, something like this neon. And I'm quite sure it will hurt your eyes a little bit. However, what it does for me is it helps me see those white spots better. So I can now see all of the items that I need to work on, and it's much cleaner. Um, I'm going to go ahead and begin to sample my colors because I didn't save them from the last time, and it's not too much of a big deal. I will not do that, but I'm going to go through real quick and sample the colors that I need to touch up. Most of the issues were with the feathers, and hopefully this will not take long to fix. Okay, and so I think we've cleaned up the feathers. Um, Towards the end, when I'm doing the shading, I will just check to make sure some of the line work that was done, it's a lighter black, and um, where the original line work for the buddy template exists. I just want to make sure at some point in time I blend those so that they are all unified. But other than that, I think we are ready to move forward to our last angle. And the reason why I'm basically saying our last real angle is because, again, the rest of the angles, when we get down here, I will not spend much time recording the video for them because they are virtually the same things that's up top. The only difference will be the location of the feather. Like I said before, some of the feathers, in this case, it will stay behind and it will be in the exact same spot, except it would be it's just this exact same spot here when you get to the 90-degree angle. Instead of being in the front like this one is, um, it will be in the back. And when you get to the 225, it will once again stay in its right spot no matter how the character flips. So if, for example, the feather is located pretty much right here, it's going to be right here, down here on the 135. So the only thing changing out of the entire angles will really be the placement of the feathers. And since that's the case, I will probably do all three of these angles at once. and it will be a very sped up tutorial. Not much to see because we are really just trying to get all of the angles in and get the feathers in the right spot. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on the 225. As usual, I'm going to go down to the 225 folder and hide the pivots so that we can see it. And I'm going to again speed up the video while I transfer over arms and feet, and then we will get started with the top hair and the upper torso for this angle. Okay, so pieces are in place, and I'm going to do something different. I usually start with the hair, but I'm going to hide the hair for right now and go ahead and do the upper torso. And again, most of the time I go back to my 0 degree angle, but for the 225, let me just, I don't know why the 180 pivots are showing, but let me hide that. But for the 225, I am going to use my upper torso from my 180 angle because it has just about everything I need. And to be honest, with this particular style, you could actually get away with doing absolutely nothing to this upper torso, just the way the buddy character is designed. So I am going to simply replace the 225 upper torso with the 180, and there's actually no work that needs to be done to it. Under normal circumstances, what I would do is kind of create a bigger curve right here on this portion. So the collar will be a little shorter on this side and a little wider on this side to indicate that the body is actually rotating. But with this simplistic design, I really don't see a need to draw unnecessary curves when it will rotate and look just fine when it's in application. So I'm not going to do anything else with the upper torso angle. I'm just going to go out of that one, and I'm going to bring back the hair, go back to the 180, and I'm going to copy the back hair. And keep in mind for this angle, and I really didn't show how I did it for the 180, but I'll make sure I'll show it in this tutorial. I put the front hair, which is the pigtails, in the front, but I did not redo the pivots so that it would show up within the application when you upload it into CTA2. So I will make sure that when I get to that portion, I will do it for the 225. But here we are, and you don't need, once again, the hair, so I'm going to take that off. First, let me make sure I'm inside of the application. Then take it off, and I'm going to go ahead and paste the 180 version of it. And because the 180 degree is so far away, I'm going to use a guide at the bottom and at the top of the feather to make sure that this angle is lined up correctly. So this is where it should be at. And there's a few things we will need to change about this angle. The first thing is, if I'm not mistaken, the feathers is on the wrong side. Yes, it is. So let's go ahead and flip this angle to make it match up a little better. And again, it's not much work that needs to be done to this angle, and I could redraw the feathers to space it out a little more, but I won't, because you won't really notice the difference with it. The main thing I want to do is put the part more so on an angle that illustrates more that this character angle has changed a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to zoom in and using the paintbrush tool. Gotta love that autosave. Using the paintbrush tool, I'm going to go ahead and clear that original part that was on here for the 180. Okay, so we're just going to see how it looks. I'm going to zoom out. And everything is in place minus the pigtails that's supposed to be in the front. So at this point in time, let's go ahead and get both of them. Copy it. I'll go back to the 225, and this angle may already have the front hair. I don't see it, so we're going to add it in. For now, I'm just going to add it somewhere in this area and put front hair. And I'm going to go ahead and paste it. And I'm just going to line it up. Let me zoom in a little so that I can once again line it up with an angle that I trust. And then we'll just go ahead and take it back over to where the 225 is. Zoom in some more and make sure that they line up the way we want them to line up, which is roughly here. Now, when it was at the 180, it makes sense for you to kind of see the hair like this. But at the 225, it should look like the hair is sitting in front, not sitting on top of the cheeks. So it's just a matter of moving that layer to a spot that we think is right. And that's probably right here. But then you have the issue of the hair now being behind your arms. So to resolve this, I'm going to go ahead and still put it in front of the face, but I'm going to go back into, actually it's in front of the face but still not past the arms. Okay, so there we go. That's the look. That's the look that I'm going for. But to fix this issue here, we need to go back into the hair and complete this angle from within. So I'm going to just kind of pretend like the hair flows over here. And it should probably end right here. Okay, so that looks better. And there you have it with the 225. I'm okay with the rotation. And again, you could have done a little bit more. I could have done it similar to how I did the 315, but this angle is very simplified. And what we can do real quick is we can quickly import it just to see how she rotates in the application. So I'll bring the application back over and import in the new changes. Well, that did not import correctly. And we see a huge swing actually from where it sits in the front is great, and where it sits here is great. When it gets to the side, I think we need to move this feather over to about right here in order for things to rotate a little bit smoother than what we're seeing. And once again, the reason why these look the way it looks is because I forgot to set the pivot. So let's go back and do that, see if we can make all the changes that we need to make all at once. The first part was the pivots here. I'm going to enable the pivots back on the 225 angle. And as you can see, they already have a front here, which is right here. And here's the pivot forward, but we're not using that one. We're going to go back to that same angle in the puppet producer. And I'm going to click on my hair again, my front hair, and I'm going to select front hair. And a lot of times you won't see it, so I'll just put the whole thing in outline mode, and I will look for the new pivot, which it appears is very close to where it's supposed to be at. This is the front hair pivot that I just added, and I needed to line up with this one. And so that I don't cause confusion to the application, once I get it lined up, I'm going to delete the original front hair marker. So now it's just the last pivot that I created. And I can now take it out of outline mode and zoom back out, and it will be in the spot that I needed to be in. So the other portion was this angle here with the feathers, and yes, lucky thing is I kept the feathers at a separate angle. So I'm just going to slide it down a little with the hopes that that will allow it to rotate at a much better angle than what we're doing here. And I don't think we need to change the feather for the 225, but let's just go ahead and export these changes out of Flash and into um, Crazytalk Animator and see how it treats the new changes. And I'm going to go back to the front. And I'm just going to see how it looks when I rotate it. And I think it will rotate much better this way. Yeah, I'm pretty fine with the rotation. And once again, the only reason why her stomach is sitting in front of her face when you perform the testing, the calibration is only because the joint mass has not been set. And this joint mass will need to be huge to cover the height and the width of her pigtails. It should be about this big when I do the final joint mass for all the angles. And what that will allow is it will allow you to see your hair in the front like you need to for all the angles. And I didn't do it from all, but as you can see, the ones in the front now twist the way it's supposed to twist. So 225 is done, and I think at this point in time, when we come back, we will quickly go through the top and bottom, which really is not much work at all. And I will then swap out all the other angles, and we will play around with the feathers for these final views, and you will have a completed character.